on this midweek episode of Full-Time Roundup. Champions League, Premier League action, and a huge final. Plus, predictions as always. Full-Time Roundup starts right now. And welcome into the latest episode of the Full-Time Roundup. Matt Gesslin here, Daniel Brackett, Thursday edition, live, coffee cast. We are here at Night Swim Coffee today, unlike our usual spot of hobbyist. Daniel, good to see you as always, bright and early. We had a great episode last night with our friend Danny Brams about MLS, so if you haven't checked that out, go ahead and listen for that on YouTube or Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. But Daniel, we are back to our normal content of Champions League, Premier League, and everything else that is European football. But good to see you. I know our coffee is starting to kick in this morning.
It certainly is, and like you said, Matt, we actually are really trying to do more for you guys. So we actually added a YouTube feature where you could actually see Danny Bram's, my face, and Matt's face, and we did some intros and stuff like that. So we messed around a lot on YouTube, and I thought it turned out pretty well. So I'm fairly happy with how it went. And so go, try that new platform out. Let us know what you think, and drop us up whenever convenient. But most importantly, we do have the Champions League. I will say the slate was not as good as it was last week, but it's still Champions League football, and you still have to be thankful for it, right? Absolutely.
Champions League is the best, as I did last week, singing the anthem for everybody with my voice. Not going to do that today, as it's a little bit hoarse from the last couple of episodes and a few other things in between, but Champions League was back, and Daniel, one of the big ones from my perspective was Porto against Arsenal, who surprisingly steal a win in the 94th minute. Where do we start here with this one?
Well, it was at the Estadio de Grau, so I always like saying that in the Portuguese frame here. But we like when we previewed this, we were talking about how Arsenal was running hot, and this was not going to. I gave a forewarning. This is not going to be an easy game. Porto are well set up with Sergio Conceição as the coach, but Arsenal were completely outplayed. And what's made the difference for them this year is set pieces, right? And the commentator was talking about that. I think they've scored the most set pieces in the Premier League so far. They have Saliba and Gabriel. It's pretty easy when you have those, and Rice in the middle. But it was just all bad. It's all bad. You probably buried the tape, but I thought Gaiano was a menace, and he probably just found a couple suitors in the summer after that performance, and he should have had not one but two goals. But man, was that goal a beauty.
Yeah, beautiful goal. Of course, a weird play by Martinelli to make a pass crossfield like that at that point in the game. You mentioned kind of Arsenal not playing up to Arsenal standards. Of course, they've been absolutely steamrolling teams in the Premier League, and we did both of us say that this was going to be a harder game for them going into this one, just the way that Porto play, more defensively and kind of compact in the back, and really wanting to kind of get a draw or even steal a result, which is exactly what they did. And now they have to go to the Emirates, and Arsenal need to win by 2 goals, Daniel. Of course, there are no away goals anymore in Champions League. But
are you happy with that, by the way?
No, and I want to get to it later on. But no away goals. But yet Arsenal will have to score 2, or at least one. They have to win the game and go to penalties. And if they don't, they don't win by 2. So it's an interesting one. I do think Mikel Arteta was outcoached here. Just got a little bit too cute with the way he set up his team and trying to take a 0-0 draw and go back to the Emirates and win that way. I think when you're a team like Arsenal, who's hasn't won a Champions League knockout round game in feels like eternity now, you kind of want to just play the way you've been playing, and especially the way that they have been playing in the Premier League, which has been very high press, high scoring, and you didn't see much of that yesterday. Only 7 shots on goal, or 7 shots period, none on goal for them. Also, huge credit to Porto. They made the game play the way that they wanted to play. I think I saw a stat that the ball was only in play for 50 minutes of that game, with 36 fouls in the game. So again, Porto played this matchup exactly that they wanted to, and they took away that momentum, that flow that Arsenal likes to play with, and you saw it, and 0 shots on goal from Arsenal. And now you hope and you think, Daniel, that they can go back home and get a result, but it's going to be interesting given the way that Porto can play defense. Can they just play compact yet again for 90 minutes and make a huge upset and knock out, arguably one of the favorites in England?
Yeah, we actually have a follower who does a gambling show, and he had one of his picks was Arsenal to win the Champions League, and I guess they are technically one of the top 5 favorites, but I can't get myself I can't stomach betting on Arsenal to win the Champions League at this rate. But you do make a good point about being outcoached. You know what this game kind of reminded me of? Bayern versus PSG Champions League final, where it was start stop all game long. Bayern just kind of out physical them, foul little fouls here and there. But yeah, no, I thought it was a good game. I don't know if they can turn around the Emirates. I mean, I think having the home advantage will definitely help. But it's going to be a really interesting draw to see kind of how, if Porto really parks the bus in that second leg, or if Arsenal really has to just pour them in forward and they can nick one on the counter. So that's a good one. But to kind of pivot to the other game, Napoli and Barca.
Boy, nap game.
Both of these games were fairly boring, if I'm being completely honest. But they share the spoils with a 1-1 draw in Naples. Napoli's new coach is Calzona, which I just thought that was pretty cool. But Osimhen was back, which was the big storyline, and so Lewandowski, opened the scoring, and Osimhen finished the scoring. 2 strikers, 2 meh goals, but I'm just not really impressed with either of these sides. The only thing that I thought that was interesting was Calzona hooked Kvaratskhelia and Osimhen late in the game, and those are the 2 players you probably would want to rely on to score a goal, especially when you're at home. But I guess if you could pack it up and just roll the dice at Barcelona Stadium, which I can't remember the name Montjuïc. Good pronunciation. That's good for you. You've been practicing. I guess you'll take that point there.
Yeah, strange week for Napoli, of course, sacking their manager 48 hours before this game. So Calzoni, or however you want to pronounce it, Calzona, did not really have much time to get, on the pitch with his squad and get a formation or way of playing that he wants to play. Of course, now they'll have 3 weeks before the next leg at the Montjuïc, as you mentioned, so he'll have a chance to kind of get some of those pieces right, or at least the way that he wants to play. But man, this was a boring game, and Daniel, a game that 12 months ago would have been beyond exciting to watch. Winner of Serie A, winner of La Liga. Barcelona were arguably one of the more impressive sides last season, the way that they played and defensively, and how they kind of had some momentum going. And yet here we are 12 months later, and Napoli sitting in 9th place, horrible in Serie A, of course. Barcelona struggling, as we've alluded to and talked about their problems over the course of the year. And this game just was exactly what you thought it was going to be when you saw it on paper, given the way the 2 teams have played. And it, like you said, a boring game that you kind of have to roll through the punches with it, because that's the matchup that we got a month ago when the draw came out. And one of these 2 teams is going to advance, and it's going to be a big statement for Barcelona if they can make it to the next round. Financially, we've talked about the implications for them, and you do feel going home that they have the advantage. Of course, sitting, let's call it second in La Liga, when Napoli are really slipping and down to 9th in Serie A. I know Barcelona's only 3rd in La Liga, but I do think they catch Girona, especially given that Girona again lost this week. So, I give the leg to Barcelona, but no, definitely not easy, and definitely not a guarantee at this point.
Yeah, you mentioned, I like how you kind of made that storyline with the 2 domestic winners are facing the Champions League, but you also can't forget that Barcelona absolutely crashed out the Champions League last year at the same time. That's why they kind of turned it up for the league, so they could get some type of silverware. But yeah, no, I feel like Barca were in the driver's seat for majority of this match, and it took one defensive mistake by Martinez for Osimhen to strike,
or a foul,
and I wouldn't call it. I don't know if I would call that a foul. I don't really know though. Refereeing just confuses me these days, but they completely took their foot off the gas at that point and just like didn't seem like they had any fight left in them to rebound and bounce back and try to go get another goal. They seemed content with just a 1-1 draw, and I wouldn't say that's the Barcelona way. So, I mean, at the end, they kind of came knocking.
Yeah, I mean, Gundogan had a chance late to didn't miss by much to win it. But
it was dominated after that Osimhen goal. It was like all Napoli for 20 minutes.
Yeah, but the first half
It was all Barcelona.
All Barcelona, 0 attempts, not even on goal, 0 attempts at home for Napoli in the first half.
Didn't even
sniff it. Final 5 minutes of the half, they played a little better, and then you mentioned, the last 5 minutes of the second half. So if you're looking at it from a Barcelona's perspective, you dominated 80 minutes of this match, call it 75 minutes of this match on the road, and just you get kind of, again, similar to what we were talking about with Arsenal. They get a result in this instance. Arsenal dropped it at the end, but Barcelona, if you get a draw on the road in the Champions League and you get to go back home to your place, that's always an advantage. Whether or not Montjuic is Camp Nou, that's a different conversation. But you're going home, and you have that advantage of being in your own locker room and your own confines going forward. So in this tournament, Daniel, as in any tournament, what's the old saying? Survive in advance. Yeah. That's all you're trying to do is survive in advance. And Barcelona looks like they have a chance to at least advance to the next round. Whether they go beyond, that's to be determined. But for them, quarterfinals is a big deal for them.
Especially financially, and we've talked about that numerous times in the show. To kind of go to Tuesday's game, Dortmund and PSV draw in Eindhoven.
Talk about reffing, by the way.
Yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and say it. Terzic might be a football terrorist. I mean, the subs, you have Bino Gittins on the bench. In this match, is Lee screaming for a player of that caliber going forward, and he decides to throw on Wolf. And I felt myself, throw up a little bit in my mouth when I saw that. And then it just you could see they just completely ran out of gas. There was zero inspiration going forward. It looked like Napoli in that first half, where they just could not even put a shot on target. It just was ugly. It was frustrating. But on the other side, a U.S. men's national team outlook of this, I thought Tillman kind of looked like a Rolls Royce out there. I thought he looked really good. He just couldn't put the ball in the back of the net. And if he did, that would have been, maybe a big move for him kind of in the summer if he really stepped up to the plate at that scenario. But I thought he played well. On the other hand, and I know you're not a fan of him, I thought Dest struggled with his decision making in the final third. He's one of arguably the best players one-on-one, but his decision making on when he beats that player is just abysmal, and it sometimes comes off, but in this Champions League fixture it did not at all.
Couldn't have said it better myself, and obviously, like you said, not a huge fan of Serginho Dest. I love the talent that he has. It just hasn't clicked yet for him, and you wonder if it will at this point, given the opportunities he's had, and let's not get back to the abysmal decision during, I think it was the Gold Cup tournament when he made that just ridiculous set of instances for a red card.
Forgive and forget.
Sure, whatever you'd like to say.
Live
this was an interesting one though, and Daniel, I think the refs have absolutely stolen an opportunity for Dortmund here. It's a big deal. Of course, that Mats Hummels tackle should not have been a penalty, although I guess you can look at it either way, where the ref has, the clear and obvious error is the ruling or the definition of VAR, and the ref did not think it was a clear and obvious error and gave the penalty, and they didn't review it, and that's going to have, like I said, this is a big deal just because of what this implication is now for the second leg.
He won the ball, but he kind of went through the opponent, so in reality, it wasn't a foul because he got the ball first. But sometimes, if you go through the guy after, then it can be a foul. So it's like a tough one to kind of figure out. I don't know. I mean, the fact that it wasn't reviewed in the first place, I thought was kind of wild because I think it deserves a review.
At least a review.
Yeah, exactly. And I think Dortmund are fairly unlucky here. But when it comes to the performance, are you more impressed with PSV or less impressed with Dortmund? And do you feel good about Dortmund getting it done at home? That's a two-part question.
It is a two-part question. We've been very consistent with our inconsistency about Dortmund. So that should answer the second question. I don't know if they have enough to get it done. I think I had PSV winning this one when we talked last time about 3-1,
which is crazy.
Maybe I'm not on aggregate. I think PSV gets it done. I don't trust Dortmund, and we saw again even in the league that they dropped points on the weekend and didn't play well here on Tuesday. So I don't know. Now they're going to come out and probably win 3-0 at home, just given the way I said that. But yeah, give me PSV in this one. I'm not confident in anything that Terzic does at this point.
Yeah, I'm gonna continue to back the yellow wall, which makes me sick because, like I said, I literally call it Terzic a football terrorist. But I just think they have enough juice to get it done at home. And to kind of move on to the last Champions League game we got on the docket, Inter are able to just slightly edge by Atletico Madrid with a goal from Marco Arnautovic. I said that, yes, Marco Arnautovic. I thought Inter outplayed Madrid completely. I think they're a real dark horse again this year. And I wanted to pose one question for you. Are Inter the top 3 side in the world right now? Because I feel like there could be an argument to be made.
They're definitely up there. The way that...
Right now, like on this day, right now.
No. They are not.
Who's better?
City, Liverpool, Real Madrid.
Real Madrid without Jude.
Yes.
Tying to Ryan.
Yes. Well, you know what the best thing is? We're going to find out in this tournament.
I guess we will.
To the game, though, itself, I mean, Arnautovic had a chance to put this one away, in my opinion. Missed an absolute sitter. Does get the goal, like you mentioned, to give them the 1-0 lead, but it wasn't a very convincing performance. And Diego Simeone and team played totally different at home. We've seen that time and time again in La Liga, or just across Spain, whether it's Copa del Rey or anything that they're at home. They're an entirely different team. The way that they press, the way that they get after it. You could see even the players were trying to kind of pick up the pace and go for an equalizer, and Simeone was telling them to slow down, even late when they're down 1-0, just not trying to concede a second one. Marcus Thuram, his injury is going to be huge for this one if they can get him back, and you expect Inter to play a little bit lower in a block and play more on the counter in this game, especially since Atleti have to come out of their shell and attack. So can Thuram, with his speed, be back in, go back over the top on a counter? That's to me is going to be the big question mark. I do think Inter is the better side of the two, but again, you had a chance to go 2-0 in this one and really make it difficult for Atleti to come back here. But 1-0, the way that they play at the Wanda, this is tough. I think extra time is definitely in the foreseeable future for this one.
Yeah, I mean, on the betting show, I picked Inter to advance, so I'm still kind of riding that at this rate. I think Inzaghi has enough to kind of really park the bus and play that vintage Italian style. Let's just wait and just survive and advance, like you say. But it wouldn't surprise me if Atletico Madrid just, dropped a masterclass, especially with a player like Griezmann leading the front. Morata's back, which I thought he was going to be out for his most recent game. And then, they have a solid roster. Yeah,
Morata was a sub. It was good to see him back given the injury that looked like it was going to be a lot worse. You mentioned Inzaghi. Just what he's done with this roster, Daniel, is remarkable. The way he kind of mixes and matches the roster based on who he's playing. He has such depth at most positions that he's getting the best of those players, and he's looking at it game to game and who he's playing against versus this is my 11, I'm sticking with it. And you don't see that too often, and it's great to see, especially, Serie A is a little different where they obviously are the top of the team, top of the class there, so you kind of know what you're going to get from them week in, week out. But when you can go to a tournament like the Champions League, and like I said, put a Mkhitaryan in if you need to, play Arnautovic whenever you need, expect in the back too.
Alexis Sanchez too.
Exactly. So he has weapons at his disposal, and that'll be a benefit for them too, especially as the game progresses, he'll see what he needs to do. If they're 45 minutes in and they just need to sit back in that block, they can play that way. If Atleti gets a goal somewhere, they can bring on some of those subs and really go for it. So it's going to be an interesting one, and what he's done there is remarkable. And semi or finals of Champions League last year. This is not new to them, and it's going to be a good second leg.
Yeah, and just kind of quickly going off what you had to say about Inzaghi, I mean, for a broke club who literally has leveraged their entire future just to stay alive right now, they have recruited so well. It's really impressive. I mean, at the top you got Lautaro Martinez, Thuram for free, Sanchez for free, and Arnautovic for free. 4 strikers at your disposal for your 2-striker system. I mean, it doesn't get better than that. You're taking Frattesi, an Italian international, off the bench. Like, it's wild what they've done, and I'm really bullish on Inter if they can, not be broke anymore. But
and real quick before we go into Premier League and other leagues that happened over the week as well, just one question for you, 2 questions for you. You mentioned the away goal situation. Curious your thoughts on if we've seen a diminishment, that's not a word, a lesser quality of football the first round because of that. And then secondly, well, answer that first and then I have a second question for you.
Yeah, no 2-part questions here. You make a good point. I didn't think about it like that. I just think football's football, so you can win on any day. So, like, even though you drop a stinker one day, doesn't mean that it should affect you the next time. Like, obviously aggregate-wise, but not, like, where you play. Who gives a shit, to me. But I see what you're saying because, I'm trying to think of an example. For PSV and Dortmund were able to get an away goal that could really play into things, in the next game. So, not really. I would say I think it puts up the pressure on each game more, but I'm cool with no away goals.
See, I prefer away goals. I think that structure of it was so unique and fascinating. I'm a traditionalist a little bit. Of course, there was the one instance for Atalanta. I think they won the game, lost the tie, and advanced because of away goals, which was or something like that. They lost the match. They won the leg because of something like that. I forgot exactly what it was, but I miss away goals and the impact it has. And it changes the structure and the approach from the home team if you're the second leg or the away team on the first leg.
It's definitely more of like you prepare more based off where you're playing in that specific game. It makes things more, I would say, not interesting, but like there's so much more writing on it, I guess. Which I don't know, you can produce a masterclass of the game, or it can be a stinker. So I feel like it can kind of go either way. It's hard to gauge. The one game, you mentioned again, the one game that I think of is when PSG mollywalked Barcelona, and then Barcelona scored like 6-1. Sergio Roberto with that classic finish to beat in away goals. That's like the classic away goals where it's like, holy shit, this is it. But like other than that, and maybe I think when Klopp went back to Dortmund for Europa League one year, it got wild. But like other than those 2 games, there's not like any big games that I feel like I found myself more like, oh my god, this away goal rule is so stupid compared to the other way around.
It's an interesting discussion, one that you can have for hours, if not days. We'll continue having it for you guys, especially as we go, if there's any big games that are impacted by it and if it stands out specifically. But my other question for you, again, quickly before we go into the other leagues. There's 3 big teams, Daniel. Inter, Arsenal, Bayern Munich, all trailing or have a 1-goal lead in their games. Which of those 3 advance to the next round? And obviously Inter have the leg up since they're ahead.
You said Inter, Bayern, and Dortmund?
Arsenal.
Arsenal?
Yeah, so if you want to look at it, Atletico are 0-1. So all 3. So Atleti, Arsenal, Madrid, and Bayern are all 0-1.
Oh, God. I don't like any of them.
They're all going home.
I think they're all going home. I guess if I had gun to my head, I would probably not count out Atletico Madrid. but rule number one is don't even look at Bayern. So I'm not going to do that. And I mean, I guess Arsenal could step up, but I just love Porto and what they're about. And I mean, we already saw Arteta get out coached, so why not again?
Totally different team at home, Arsenal. So give me Arsenal in this one. I just think there's too much firepower. But it's a good question, just because they're three big teams and they're all in the same boat, going home down 1 goal in this Champions League tie. So we'll see what happens. But Daniel, a team that was down. Speaking of down, 1-0.
Tell me if you've heard this before.
Stop me if I've heard this before. Your beloved Liverpool, who kick off week 26 in the Premier League. With a game against Luton on Wednesday. We were recording our episode with Danny Brams, like we said, in the evening, and I felt like we might not have seen Daniel bracket had Liverpool continued this state that they were on until about the 55th minute, when Van Dijk comes in and arguably puts on his captain's armband and takes over his cape, and he saves Liverpool. Of course, they start rolling after that, but Daniel, up until that point, it looked a little shaky. Luton were very, very impressive on the road.
As the classic meme back in the day, not going to lie, they had us in the first half. That's how I felt. And not going to lie either. I was spiraling at halftime. I mean, I was as rattled could get. I mean, I didn't expect Mo Salah to be injured for this one. I didn't expect Darwin Nunez to not even be on the bench for this one. And so when I looked at the starting lineup, I was like, this is not as good as I thought it was going to be. Harvey Elliott on the right, Gakpo through the middle, and Diaz to the left. Midfield was fine, defense was fine, and then I looked to the bench, and it was just our U18 academy, it looked like. And I was like, well, if we need a goal, who the hell are we going to bring on to go get a goal?
I didn't even know who McConnell was, by the way.
He's actually featured more like Bobby Clark in him, but like this Don's guy, no clue. Like, I don't even know who he is. But I was like, well, if we need a goal bad, like I was thinking of tactic changes, maybe 3 in the back. Like I was spiraling pretty bad, and then Virgil really stepped up, and then the second one off a throw-in, like really ruined. That's bad. Yeah,
about 90 seconds later too. But you mentioned, just the way that game kind of spiraled, and you felt like it was coming once Liverpool got over that hurdle, and they got the first one. The second came pretty quickly. The third was not too far after that. So it is interesting, though. Luton, a very impressive team. We've talked about them hopefully staying up as one of the more interesting stories coming out of the promotion from last season. And, they didn't really expect to get much out of this one, I would imagine, going into it. When you go up 1-0, though, and you're 55 minutes into a game, you kind of are all of a sudden thinking, hey, maybe we can steal a point here. But they kind of fell apart at the end there. And Harvey Elliott with a big goal at the end, the 4th goal, just to kind of get some of that confidence. He's a great young player, unbelievable talent, especially the age that he's at. And it was good to see him get on the score sheet. But you also now go 4 points clear again of Man City.
Still a game in hand.
Still a game in hand, though, but still they can't catch you.
They can't.
Are you still feeling pretty confident in the driver's seat, or? We've talked about it before, we still feel Man City's league to win, but they've dropped some points that we didn't think they were going to drop. Where are you now at this point? Only 12 games left for you guys, by the way.
Not to complain about injuries, this is not a complaint. It's just become a concern, really. I just don't understand how our entire bench and front line is completely injured right now, which is really concerning. But a couple other thoughts I just wanted to get to real quick of the match. With these injuries, we need Diaz to put the ball in the back of the net. And he did score, but he had like 4 golden opportunities and just could not convert. And it was very frustrating. But with Diaz's goal and Gakpo's goal, we have Mo Salah at 19 goals, Jota at 14, Darwin at 13, Gakpo 11, and Diaz at 10. 5 of our probably 6 strikers that we have are over 10 goals for the year. Pretty impressive stat. But
2 of them are hurt right now, though.
And 2 of them are hurt, which is not ideal. And then McAllister, what a masterclass from Maka. But we're gonna get to it later. But I'm a little worried. But I'm a little worried about the Premier League first. All eyes on the Premier League as of right now. But we just can't keep doing this, go down and come back and score 3, 4, 5 consecutive goals. It's not good for me. It's not good for Liverpool. I'm sure it's not good for fans. And my last thing, because I went on a little bit of a rant, Anfield made a difference. They were loud in that second half, and that is why I think we scored and just went on a run.
You did feel like Liverpool were starting to get rid of that drop one early for a while, but came back, and that could be something that rears its head later on in the season. So we'll keep an eye on that. And you mentioned all the injuries, and hopefully you guys can get some of those players back. It would be a pretty remarkable achievement if Klopp was able to take this to the finish line and win the title this year, given the injuries, given that City and Arsenal are behind him, fighting for it, and what a way to close out his career at Liverpool. Arguably would probably be his biggest achievement if they do win this title. Long way to go, of course, 12, 13 games respectively, depending on if you're Liverpool or the chasing pack. So, it's going to be interesting. You mentioned those injuries, though. Can they get some of those guys back and healthy in a quick enough fashion? There's also a game on the weekend that we'll get to. That could be an impact there. And yet still you guys are questionable and ongoing for a quadruple still. So we'll see how that plays out. But
Can you say that again?
Yeah, you were on pace still for a quadruple, potentially?
I just thought you said quadruple there.
And so that's neither here nor there. City, who of course played on Tuesday, we mentioned you guys have a 4-point lead. Liverpool have a 4-point lead on City. City played Brentford on Tuesday.
Talk about boring.
Boring game. Again, though, City just cannot find the back of the net. They dominated possession, and Haaland had multiple chances in this one too. Finally gets off the schneid, though, gets a big game-winning goal. Pep comes out afterwards and says, never criticize a goal scorer like him. But Daniel, it's a little bit kind of tongue-in-cheek, if you ask me, just because he did miss chances that he's supposed to finish, and yet he does score big goals like this one. But when the game needed it against Chelsea, he had a poor game, and so you do have to give some criticism when it's warranted. And I understand Pep defending his player, but what did you make of this one? Again, another lackluster kind of ho-hum performance from City, but they get 3 points, and that's really all that matters.
Yeah, I really thought City were going to go nuclear after playing Chelsea and just absolutely drop Brentford. Haaland just not playing well in the last month has been pretty interesting. I think he's still scoring goals, but they're just really soft goals that the defense gives up, less Haaland brilliance like what we usually see. I think that big head of Pep is going to be really thinking of another tactical invention here that we're going to see. He rolled out the inverted John Stones last season, kind of at the end of the season, and that's really what set the difference between City, not wanting the treble and winning the treble. So I think he's going to switch up how they play, because I just think right now it's just not good enough. They're creating chances, but they're not finishing them. I think he's going to throw the game plan out the window and try something new here shortly. And what that could be, that's only for Pep to know, as he's the genius, not I.
He's definitely the genius and not us. But you mentioned, just the fact that they're not finishing. I do think that will come with time. They have the chances, right? And I think that's the biggest thing. If you weren't seeing any chances created, then you can worry a little bit. Again, we talked about it last week's episode. Defensively is where I get a little concerned for Manchester City. You saw Brentford still have some chances yet again. In this one, they had a chance to go down and score, tie at 1-1, take the lead at that point. And so you just wonder kind of where some of these players are mentally in the back. And again, the way that they're playing, where they're trying to go more counter-attacking and forward-thinking, they expose themselves in the back. I think you're missing a player like John Stones, who would sit next to Rodri and come into the midfield there. And when you don't have that, Akanji has kind of played some of that role, and he's not as good at it. And you leave a little bit of gaps, especially they're not as tight, when they press. For that reason, there's a little bit of separation between the midfield and the forwards, and midfield and the defense, especially when Kevin De Bruyne plays a little bit more forward, the way he's playing of late. So, to your point, Pep will figure it out, and they're still in a decent place, in my opinion. They're still the team to beat, but there's a lot of games to go, and can they continue this momentum and continue the run that they've been on? We talked about just how difficult doing what they're trying to do is, and it's never been done before for a reason.
Well, KDB apparently has something a little wrong with his hamstring too, so that's a really, really, really interesting development to keep your eye on to see if that's long term. I don't know if you saw the scar that he had. Did you see that?
Well, he had surgery on it.
Well, yeah,
so.
like that scar was a gnarly little cut there that doctor made. But to move on, just real quick, Everton Palace draw. At Goodison Park, I kind of backed Everton here. I think you backed Palace as Roy Hodgson stepped down. They shared the spoils here. This would have been a great opportunity for Everton to capitalize on, a new manager. Didn't have really time to set up the team. They could have really used 3 points here, but they did come back from losing. So I guess it's somewhat of a positive. But I guess Luton losing yesterday really helped them kind of stay in that. Not close the gap a little bit, but just stay close to Luton. But I don't know. I think Everton are a good team, though. If you take the point deduction away, they're in the middle of the table. So it's hard for me to be hard about Everton, but they just do it to themselves.
I was with a lot of people on that. If you give them the points back, they're top half earlier in the season. Now that you give them the points back, they're still only 13th. So they're not that good a team, though. But I hear you. But it's not like they would be so much better than that. This result here was a win for Palace. Of course, they were literally winning the game, so it would have been an actual win. But getting a point on the road, especially given how badly Everton needed, Goodison was trying to will them forward, and Ayew gets a great goal that kind of came out of nowhere, and then Everton score an equalizer off a corner kick and kind of steal a point. But if you're Everton, you really needed these 3 points at home. You mentioned Luton right behind them, and of course now they're tied on points going into this week's fixture. And so I still like Luton. I know Everton are probably going to get a few points back. They may not get all 10 back, but I still like Luton to advance regardless. Just because I do think that there's other teams like a Palace or a Forest that could slip further down the table. The nice thing about this one, Daniel, is that if you've been kind of following the chronological order of how we've been talking here, there was a game on Monday, there was a game on Tuesday, there was a game on Wednesday in the Premier League, and of course supplement that with games today in Europa League, and then we have Bundesliga on Friday. So we've had a game every single day this week, not including Champions League. It's just a fun time to be a fan to watch, and it's hard to keep up with everything, but at the same time, I'm not going to be upset about having a game of footy every single day of the week.
Yeah. They're making content for us, so I'm thankful. But to move on to La Liga real quick, the Girona experiment, wonderful, miraculous journey has kind of, I wouldn't say come at a halt, but certainly slowed down. They threw in neutral, if you will, and they lose to Athletic Bilbao 3-2, I believe. And this was a big game for Athletic Bilbao as they climb up the table. But for Girona, it seems like they're starting to come back to reality a little bit. I think Barcelona's only 2 points behind them now. So they're going to need to, they still have a decent amount of room between fourth place and them, but they definitely need to kind of bounce back and get their heads right if they still want Champions League football.
How far do they slip?
I gotta have to check real quick. Let's see here. They're only 5 points in front of Athletic Madrid. I'm gonna put my tinfoil hat on real quick. We've mentioned this before. Because they're a part of City Footballing Group, there could be a chance that one of the teams could not play in the Champions League next year. And I don't know which team that would be, but I think putting the tinfoil hat on, I think they might be throwing it a little bit, so that there's no doubt in anyone's mind that City will be the one competing in the Champions League and Girona will be in the Europa League.
I'm glad that you admitted that you're putting your tinfoil hat on. That's a pretty big conspiracy to say that they're throwing it when they were atop the table, but I don't think that they finish in Champions League spots, regardless if it's by design or just the way they're playing on the pitch.
It depends, because they might get 4 or 5, depending on how these draws. Because either Italy or Spain get that extra Champions League draw. So even if they're in 5th place, it's still possible that they could still get UCL. It's a weird one.
I still don't think they make it. Just too much behind them, and we've talked about how this team really is probably more of a mid-table team regardless, and just had a really nice story to start us off, and there's just too much time. If we had maybe 3 or 4 games left or 5 games left to go, I think they would have squeezed it out, but given that there's still a dozen or so games left to go, I think they slip a little bit. It's just kind of one of those nice stories to start us off, and of course we were hoping that it would last all season, but Real Madrid put a squash to that, and now you try and pick up the pieces as quickly as you can, knowing that your title run is over. How fast they can do that, I think, determines if they can stay in the top 4, but for me, not going to happen. Now, the big one, Daniel. For those of you that are not aware, I am a Chelsea fan. Daniel is a Liverpool fan.
Shocking.
And there is a big matchup on Sunday that hopefully we will be watching, depending on how things go at the Charlotte FC game here in town on Saturday. If we are watching that game together, it'll be in the French Quarter, so feel free to come and join us. We'll post that out on our Twitter handle or X handle, Full-Time Roundup, if we're going to make it out there. But probably going to be in Hooligans or French Quarter alleyway as we watch that game. But Daniel, you kind of alluded to it a little bit earlier that you're a little concerned or a little nervous here about this one. I'm going to let you take the floor first since you're the favorite going into this, the expected winner. So no pressure now. Chelsea's just going to come in behind and just kind of steal your thunder. So I'll let you lead us off here first with your take.
All right. I'm just going to take the mic real quick, just a little bit. This is a secret, so no one can know. But I am very nervous. I am more nervous than I thought I would ever even be close to being. Like, when I saw the Slogan lineup come out, I was like, holy shit, we actually might lose this final. Now, I'm going to go positive vibes only and hope that Salah will be playing. If he plays, this will be a different result. But if Darwin and Salah do not go, then I am super worried. And you might never, ever see me on this podcast again. Because I don't think I can look Matt in the eye for Chelsea beating us in the EFL final.
Given how much smack that Daniel talks to me behind the scenes that none of you see, if we were to win this final, he is probably correct that he should never come back on this podcast just because he'll never hear the end of it. I will say this, though, of course, you guys are still the favorites going into it, but Chelsea have looked tremendously better. You and I have talked about it. You continually say to me that we're back. I don't give you that credit quite yet, but we have been improving over the last 3 or 4 weeks.
This discourse that you're even doing means you're back, and you know it. You just won't lean into it because you know it'll hurt if you're not back.
10th place is not back, so
you're hot at the right time.
That doesn't mean anything. Let's talk at the end of the year if we finish in a place that makes sense. This is a big one for us, though, more so than for you guys, obviously. This really is our season. We don't have a chance at the title. We're not in European competition. So if we can pull off a double somehow on the domestic cups, of course, with the FA Cup as well, still going, which actually has restarts next week, Daniel. We'll get to that on Sunday, but depending on how we're feeling Sunday afternoon. But this is a big one for us. And you look at kind of the way we played against Manchester City. You look at how we played against Aston Villa in the FA Cup as well. I do think that we're trending. We're finding some form. If Disasi and Levi Colwell play centrally in the back again, I think you're starting to see a foundational piece defensively. Mal Augusto's been playing great at the right back position as well. Ben Chilwell, kind of coming back from injury, just locking down that left side. I think this is what Poach was expecting from the back line all season long, just given injuries and where they were before that. So we'll see what happens. Offensively, that's where I think we are lacking. How much can Cole Palmer take and kind of run the show for us here, and how does he compare against Mo Salah if he plays? Obviously, they're not comparable, but can he at least for one game step up to the plate and shine as bright as Mo Salah here? Can Raheem Sterling make a difference like he did against Manchester City? To me, a coin flip. I think it's probably 60-40 Liverpool favorite, to be honest. You have the betting odds. You can kind of allude to more accurately. Of course, I do not participate in that. but I think it's a close game. I do think Liverpool probably pull it out late, maybe extra time. Of course, historically Chelsea Liverpool 0-0s or 1-1. So get yourself ready for a slow, boring type of game. Of course, there has to be a winner in this one because it's a final. But again, I do think Liverpool will find a way to pull it out.
We also don't have Allison, which hurts the penalties. But right now, to lift the trophy, Liverpool's -155. Chelsea is +130. So the odds have gone a lot in Chelsea's favor as of late. But it's going to be really interesting. Like we said, we're going to be at Hot Fly on Saturday. So if you're in the Charlotte area, come say hi to us. And then we're going to try our best to go to Hooligans on Sunday. More than likely, I'd say probably 75% at this rate. So we hope to see you at 10 o'clock in the French Quarter area. Now, real quick, we'll do some predictions. First, starting with this game, Liverpool-Chelsea, who lifts the trophy score?
Liverpool lifts the trophy, 1-1 score, 5-4 on penalties.
You actually took this fan text script I had. I'm going to say 1-1 as well. I'm going to say 5-3 on penalties. I feel like you guys have plenty of chokers on that roster that can miss a penalty.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much for
No
that.
problem. All right, to get into the domestic games, though, we have first on the docket Arsenal-Newcastle playing. Pretty interesting matchup here. Arsenal, off a tough loss here, and Newcastle are just kind of sputtering. How do you handicap this game?
Give me Arsenal. I think it's a big one, bounce back. They need to keep pace with City. They may have been looking towards this game a little bit too on the weekend, just during the midweek, given that they knew they had this game against Newcastle and they had the game return leg at the Emirates versus Porto. So yeah, give me Arsenal 2-0 on this one. I think Newcastle are really struggling.
We're going to go 3-1 Arsenal as well. Bayern, RB Leipzig.
Oof. Tuchel could be out. Of course, he is leaving at the end of the season, but he could be out after this game. Bayern have been very, very poor at the back against teams like Bochum and Augsburg of late, and obviously RB Leipzig has some players like Openda and Xavi Simons. 3-1 Leipzig.
Wow. Now that's a bold take. I'm going to go 1-1 Bayern Leipzig. Next on the docket, Real Betis for Athletic Club.
Betis.
This is huge for
big
for our fourth prediction.
Betis are starting to fall away a little bit from that fourth place. It's starting to look like it's Athletic Club in fifth. Can they catch the rest of the pack? Athletic Club 2-1.
I'm going to go with Athletic Club 1-0. Hate that we're picking some of the same ones. Next on the docket, Milan versus Atalanta.
Atalanta 2-0.
2-0. I'm going to go 2-2. AC Milan and Atalanta share the spoils here. Lens versus Monaco. Got some good Ligue 1 matchups.
Yeah, you do have a couple on here. Lens are sneaky good. Monaco have not been great of late. Monaco 1-0.
I'm going to go 1-1. They draw here. PSG versus Iran.
Move on. 3-0 PSG. This is easy.
That's a bummer. I'll probably have to agree. Easy Alkmaar versus Ajax. Fourth and fifth place. Both teams are playing their best football as of right now.
It will be interesting. Ajax have a big game today
Against
Bodo Glimt in the Europa Conference League. They are on the road. AZ Alkmaar 1-0. I just think Ajax have tried to climb back into this one and too much to have made up for, and too many games on their docket.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to give Easy Alkmaar the edge here. Probably a 2-0 win. Leicester versus Leeds, a championship, which we never do, but it's 1-2 playing right now.
And we're getting close to where we need to start talking more about the championship, of course, as they're getting closer to the end of the season.
I need Leicester for my 100-point season.
You do. So I'm guessing that's where you're going. Give me Leeds. not because of your 100-point prediction, but I just don't think Leicester can win every single game. You know what? I take it back. 1-1 draw.
I was gonna say Ewan would have been really pleased with what
I know.
you had to say there.
I know.
I think this is gonna be a thriller. I'm going 3-2 Leicester, because they're at home, and then we have 3 quick rapid fire MLS games since we didn't get to cover it yesterday. LAFC versus Seattle Sounders.
LAFC, very simple here, 2-0.
I'm going to go another 3-2 thriller here with LAFC in Seattle. Columbus versus Atlanta, not Atalanta.
1-1. It's too early in the season to know what either of these two teams. I could say ties for all these games, even the one before. 1-1 though for this one for me.
I'm going to go 2-1 for Columbus to beat Atlanta, and then our last one, Galaxy, who I was very high on last episode. Check that out. Versus Inter Miami, who played actually yesterday and won 2-0 against RSL.
I believe that Miami has to travel to LA on this one.
That is correct.
So LA Galaxy, 2-1.
You know how those old people get with flying across the country and jet lag. So I'm going to go 1-1 here for a draw. I think Inter have enough to get a result, but I think Galaxy are going to come in fired up.
We shall see. Of course, predictions are always fun. We keep a track of how we're doing. We'll have to do an end of season statistic or tally, Daniel, just to see where we netted out. But another great episode. Thank you for listening, guys. Of course, we have our MLS MLS preview episode. If you didn't know, check that out. Go ahead. You can listen to that either on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts, or YouTube. Of course, you can listen to this episode as well, wherever you get your podcasts or on YouTube. Feel free to like, subscribe, give us a 5-star rating. Subscribe to the channel on YouTube if you are a preferred YouTube listener. Of course, interact with us on Full-Time Roundup over on X. We'll be posting some stuff this weekend to tell you where we are. Otherwise, we'll see you on Saturday. And if we don't see you locally, we will see you on Sunday in the next episode.